What's up, y'all? One solo album with 11 songs, 3 duet albums with a total of 36 songs, less than 20 songs released on various small record labels. These figures are a perfect example of something being greater than the sum of its parts. The numbers I just stated don't sound very impressive. In fact, they sound rather ordinary. But what if I told you those numbers were the sum of Tammi Terrell's career? Looking within the numbers reveals the greatness within. While it's true that Tammi Terrell wasn't a star for very long, the impact of what she accomplished cannot be disputed. Her duets with Marvin Gaye created timeless music that consisted of some of the greatest songs in music history. Songs like Ain't Nothing Like the Real Thing, Ain't No Mountain High Enough, Your Precious Love, and If This World Were Mine are still popular nearly 60 years after they were first released. Additionally, these songs have been covered many times by many different artists, and few, if any, have reached the level of the original. Furthermore, Gaye and Terrell set the standard for male and female duets. They were a young couple who looked like they were in love and looked good together. They had great camaraderie and performed together as though they were born to do it. There's no telling how much great music they could have released if Terrell's career wasn't tragically cut short. Tammi packed a lot into the 24 short years that she lived. However, stories you hear about her more often than not tend to focus on the same 3 topics: her duets with Marvin, the abuse she suffered at the hands of David Ruffin or James Brown, and the brain cancer that ultimately took her life. Obviously, even a short life like Tammi's consisted of more than that. In our mini-series, we want to fill in the blank, so to speak, and tell you about what you didn't know about Tammi Terrell. Thomasina Winifred Montgomery was born in North Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on April 29, 1945. Her parents, Thomas and Jenny Montgomery, expected a boy and had already picked out the name Tommy. Thomas and Jenny were both born in South Carolina, and they both also had moved to Philadelphia in the 1940s for better job opportunities. Tammy's uncle was Bob "Bobcat" Montgomery, an International Boxing Hall of Famer, as well as a 2-time light heavyweight champion in the 1940s. Tammy's Aunt Alice, her mother's sister, would prove to be very instrumental in her family's life, as Tammy's mother was very sickly. Alice would often serve as a second mother to both Tammi and to her younger sister Ludie. Tammy's father Thomas was a busy man who was involved in many different things in the community, including serving as a ward leader and owning his own barbershop. Those things always seemed to come first before his family. Her mother Jenny, on the other hand, as we mentioned earlier, was often ill during Tammy's childhood. She had suffered from headaches her entire life. Very early in Tammy's life, her mother was diagnosed as being depressed and would spend months on end in a mental institution. While she was there, part of the treatment she received included electric shock therapy. Much later in her life, the real culprit behind her mental illness would be found. It was not depression, but instead an undetected aneurysm in the frontal lobe of her brain that caused her issues. Tammi, seemingly inheriting this from her mother, would also suffer headaches for a large part of her life. Tammi was an active child from the very beginning, as she was already taking dancing and piano lessons when she was only 3 years old. She loved to perform whenever she could. As Tammi grew older, she would turn out to be very similar to her father. They were both extroverted people who were very popular and loved to be the center of attention. While Thomas was a good provider, he was not emotionally available to his family, nor was he particularly family-oriented. Having to balance his wife's ongoing sickness with his job and his activities in the community would sometimes get to be a lot for him. When he needed a break, Tammi would go stay with her Aunt Alice. Tammi would spend a large part of her childhood at Alice's home in Germantown, which was a suburb of Philadelphia. At one point, Tammi and her sister tried to sneak backstage at a concert at the Uptown Theater. The headliner for the show was Fats Domino. Mickey and Sylvia were also performing. While the girls were trying to sneak in, they were caught by Sylvia. Tammi told Sylvia that she was her biggest fan and pleaded for her not to tell on the girls. Sylvia felt sorry for them and relented, and she even introduced the girls to Fats and Mickey, who were both very kind to them. Afterwards, Tammi had her mind made up, and she told her sister, "I'm going to be a star." It was around this time, during one of her periods of staying at Analysis, that Tammi began to experience periods of loneliness. She was missing her mother, who at the time was once again in a mental institution. Tammi was the kind of person who always needed to be around other people. She always felt the need to be validated by others as well. In an attempt to cheer up his daughter, her father bought her 3 ducks, which she named Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Her father also had a small pond built for the ducks. That did the trick. As Tammy's mood improved, the ducks made her happy, and she was more like her normal self. Around that same time, Tammi put a soapbox in the backyard and started entertaining the kids in the neighborhood by singing. She liked to perform songs by Ella Fitzgerald, Gloria Lynn, jingles from commercials, songs she'd learned from church. Pretty much anything that she could sing, she was interested in. Tammi also liked Billie Holiday, Sarah Vaughan, and Dinah Washington. She could imitate each of them perfectly as she sang their songs. She also had her eye on fashion because she liked how glamorous Dorothy Dandridge and Lena Horne looked. Tammi enjoyed showing off for both her family and for the other kids. As a result, she started doing impromptu shows almost every day. When she wasn't doing that, she liked playing games like Devil and Eggs, Giant Steps, Hide and Seek, Hopscotch, Jacks, and Old Mommy Witch. Tammi and her family attended church often. While they were there, Tammi not only sang in the church choir, but she sang solo too. Perhaps as a way for making up for her mother not being there so often, her father indulged her love of music by buying Tammi a piano. Tammi excelled and would spend hours playing and composing songs. As usual, she would eventually have an audience. The neighborhood kids would come to the house, singing and dancing. Tammi could play music by ear, and she could perform anything that she had previously heard. She would do songs like In the Still of the Night and Tears on My Pillow. Tammi parlayed her talent into an appearance on a local children's TV show called The Children's Hour. The show was both a variety and a talent show. Tammi would not only sing, but tap dance too. Now, as was the case with a lot of people who lived up north, Tammy's family had relatives that lived in the South. As a result, Tammi would spend a couple of different summers in Sumter, South Carolina. While she was there, she stayed with her grandparents on her father's side, along with her Aunt Hattie. Of course, the slow pace of the small southern city was much different than the hustle and bustle of a big city like Philadelphia. She was 11 years old when she went there in 1956. When she got to the house in Sumter, it was like nothing she had ever seen before or smelled before. The air had a strange, musty smell to it. Chickens would run around the yard, dogs was hanging out under the porch, and a hen house was on the side of the main house with a pig pen a little further back. There was cotton and watermelon growing behind the house, along with vegetables like corn, tomatoes, and peas. There was also a smokehouse and a water pump. And after that, she saw something that she had never seen before: an outhouse. That might have been what was contributing to that strange smell that she whiffed when she very first got there. Being in the South was going to present a whole new set of challenges that Tammi had never had to deal with before. The farm wasn't just for looking at, it was a working farm, and Tammy's arrival there meant that she'd become a member of the staff. She had to gather eggs from the hen house, make sausage, pick cotton, shuck peas and corn, and tie and hang tobacco. She also had to get used to taking a bath with water from the water pump and using lye soap. These experiences down south helped Tammi develop her inner strength and perseverance. She also learned the value of hard work. Shortly after Tammi returned to Germantown, Her mother came to stay with her at Aunt Alice's while her father remained in the family home. Meanwhile, the civil rights movement was beginning to pick up steam, and Tammy's father was right in the middle of it. His involvement often kept him away from the family, and they would only see him on the weekends. Even though Tammy's mother was staying with the family, she still wasn't herself. More often than not, she stayed in her room with the drapes drawn. She'd be lying down with a scarf drenched in camphor wrapped around her head. This was intended to help lessen the great pain she was in due to the headache she kept having. Tammi didn't get to spend much time with her. Mostly, she just tried to behave and not upset her mother so that she could rest. The good parts, though, came on the days when her mother was feeling better. She did her best to support Tammy's interests. She was vital to Tammy's attending talent shows and auditions, as she would find information in newspapers, hear it on the radio, or see it on bulletin boards around the city for various shows and contests. Additionally, her mother would take Tammi shopping to find the outfits for her shows. Tammy's father, on the other hand, wanted her to focus more on her studies at school. Tammi was very intelligent and had inherited her father's keen business mind. Moreover, her father was not a fan of show business. As his brother Bob was a boxer, he was aware of some of the pitfalls that the boxing game had to offer. It was a hard business and a difficult one to survive in. Tammy's dad felt that boxing and the entertainment field were very similar, and he didn't want his daughter going through any of what his brother had seen or experienced. And he didn't hesitate to let Tammi know how he felt about that. While Tammi did well in school, she ignored her father's warnings about the music business. She was intent on being a star, as show business was where her heart was. Eventually, her father saw this, and he resigned himself to accepting what Tammi wanted to do. That's going to do it for part 1 of what you didn't know about Tammi Terrell. We still have a lot more to tell. We hope you'll come back and check out part 2 of this mini-series. Thank you for spending time with us, for checking us out, for listening to and watching our video. Please continue to like, subscribe, comment, and share, and repeat. Thanks again, and see you soon.